if you want me to, I've got it printed out. If you want me to go down through there and just however you want to do it. It looks like we've got a limited amount of time before the next meeting, but the first two items are the minutes from 12/15/2020 and 11/10/2020.
There is one of those sets of minutes that we cannot approve, and that would be the November 10th meetings, because Mr. Sprouse, Mr. Bolt was there. Okay. Mr. Hayes was part of that committee at that time and still is. I'm looking for Mr. Bradley to tell me what the legal way is to get by these minutes. And since I do not see him right now, I'll just put those minutes aside and call for approval of the December 15th minutes.
So
moved. Basically to elect a chairman.
So moved, Chairman.
And seconded.
Mr. Waters, Mr. Hayes. All right. We will have to vote by yes or no. Mr. Hayes, you in favor?
Yes.
Mr. Waters?
Yes, thank you.
And myself. Those minutes are approved. We have ordinance rezoning the property located on the east side of Calendar Lane, ordinance 2020-51, and on the north side of East Main Street, Hendersonville, Sumner County, Tennessee. Mr. Free?
Yes, this has come from the Planning Commission to the applicant requesting a rezoning from residential to commercial on this piece of property. And I can answer any questions, and there might be a representative of the developer here as well if anyone had any questions. This is a similar piece of property that over a year ago had went through the process and I think had been denied. This particular thing, I think you're going to see in some of the stuff and from the Planning Commission and probably what the applicant is going to speak to is they're looking to do a Popeye's chicken at this location. But even though the developer is, making it clear what they're intending to do with the property, this is not planned development. This is straight zoning. So you just need to take into account the use that are allowed within the commercial zoning.
What was the Planning Commission recommendation? That's what I'm looking for now.
To approve.
To approve. All right, committee. Anyone on the committee have questions? Mr. Waters, yes, Mr. Hayes.
My hand's up, sir.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm not good at this. Your hand is up.
That's okay. You're doing great. You're doing great.
Thanks.
Do I have the floor?
You do.
Keith?
Yes, sir.
I'm looking at the staff report here. It says to develop a Popeye restaurant. Is this what's going to be built there now? Do we know that for sure?
Well, that's what the applicant is. Is looking to build a Popeye's restaurant. It's something to keep in mind. That's the intent of the applicant. But this is being rezoned from rural residential to general commercial, which is straight zoning. It's not planned development. So once it's zoned commercial, it could be any of those uses that are in commercial, but the applicant is clearly making the intent that that's what they are wishing to do. But when the Planning Commission made the recommendation and when BOMA considers it, that's something that I would suggest not to take into account when you make your decision.
Not to take into account?
Yes, sir.
Okay. This is the same location where we had a applicant, I believe, on a tire store maybe about a year ago. Is that correct?
That's correct, sir.
Okay. How many acres do we have here? This says 1.4 acres. That's all they want. How many acres altogether?
It's just 1.04 acres. And this is it's a small corner. It's owned by a part of the Chenault family, but the remaining acreage where you see the house and all the land, that's owned by another portion of the Chenault family. But this is a standalone lot. It's not a part of any other lot. This is the totality at which the owner owns this 1.04 acres.
But it's on the same location as the Chenault property, the whole, 70 some odd acres?
Yeah, but it has been several years ago, it was called out as a separate tract. So it's a distinct and separate ownership tract, and it's owned by a different portion of the Chenault family.
So we're going to rezone just 1.4 acres out of the whole property.
Yes, this is
That's
all.
the request.
Yes, and it is the totality of this particular parcel. The owner of this parcel does not have any ownership interest in the remaining larger Chenault farm.
So I'm looking at, it looks like it's 73 acres altogether. So we're going to rezone this to commercial, right?
Yes,
This
to general,
1.4 and leave the
general
rest and leave the rest residential.
Yeah, we're not, and none of that rest has anything to do in this action.
Okay.
That'll just stay as it is.
Okay. Can I ask you a question about the property across the street? Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind, it's kind of off the base here. The Jack
You
in the
have the
Box. Do you know what's going in there, Keith?
Yeah, we don't have a specific name, but it is a restaurant that I believe will be somewhat, it'll have some chicken related menu.
Okay.
But I don't have a specific name at this point in time. But it's not Popeyes.
Pardon me?
It's not Popeyes.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're muted, sir.
Muted.
There you go. Nope.
Mr. Brown, we can't hear you.
Tina, would you be able to unmute him on your end?
You're muted, Steve.
Unfortunately, no. I can make a request, but I cannot force the action.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
There you go.
Well, that's confusing. Mr. Free, do we not have a Popeyes on Indian Lake Road already?
No, that is a Bojangles.
Bojangles. Okay. Chicken.
Good biscuits.
Chicken is chicken. All right. I don't have any questions on this. Mr. Hayes, do you?
No, sir. I would vote yes for this.
You like chicken?
I like chicken.
Okay. So Mr. Hayes has moved. I guess that yes would be a
Yes.
move to approve.
Please.
Mr. Waters, do you second? You're muted. I will second it.
Can you hear me now?
I
Yes,
can.
sir.
I
Sir?
have a motion and a second to approve this and move it on to BOMA. Please answer in the affirmative or the negative when your name is called. Mr. Hayes,
Yes, sir. Yes.
Mr. Waters,
No.
and I would say yes. That is approved to move on 2-1. Okay, now we have before us ordinance creating the position of Chief of Operations and setting forth the qualifications, duties, and salaries of said position. Mr. Robertson's a sponsor, and he is here. And we are limited on time, Eddie, so do your best.
Well,
You
thank
do
you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Congratulate you on your appointment as chair of this important committee. A little over an hour and a half ago, maybe 2 hours ago, some of you received a revised ordinance. That revised ordinance, I need to just briefly explain to you. About 1:30, Mr. Bradley came to me and raised a couple of points that he thought needed to be clarified to make it more clear. So these changes were upon his suggestion as legal advisor to BOMA. And basically what the changes are, they are to ensure that if this ordinance passes, that there is a smooth and seamless transfer of duties between the CA and the Chief of Operations. the intent from the get-go of this legislation committee was that if this is approved, that there would be a seamless transition. And he thought that changes specifically in section 1, as you can see the red line version, changes in section 2, subsection 2, and also the last section 4, subsection 2 were needed to clarify the smooth transition, the dovetailing of these two positions. So other than that, there are some typos. I drafted this myself. I'm not an attorney, so I didn't capitalize some words that should have been. He thankfully caught those. And this form, and I think Mr. Bradley's on the line, this form that you're looking at now has his stamp of approval as being as having proper legal form. And so with that, I'm going to say a lot more during the BOMA meeting. But with that, I'm available to the committee for any questions that you may have.
Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, Mr. Waters.
Eddie,
Yes.
I didn't get the revised additions that you made reference to a few minutes ago. Do you mind repeating those?
I will try to send it out again as well.
Do you have it?
I'm looking at it, and the mayor has agreed. After Mr. Bradley gave me the red line version, I asked the mayor, since he prepared the agenda, to send it out to the committee members. Did anyone else not receive the red line version?
I didn't. Am I the only one?
Evidently. So I think the mayor's going to send that to you. Section 1 of the ordinance has added the word "upon taking effect." And that, again, makes sure that it's a smooth transition, that there will never be a time when there is not either the CA or the COO responsible for day-to-day operations. The next change, if you'll look at section 4, subsection 2, that has been changed to make sure that the CA, with all of its current duties and responsibilities, will remain in place until the board confirms a candidate for the position of Chief of Operations.
Okay, thank you.
And then the last one is section 2, subsection 2. I had put in that the board must act no more than 14 days. But Mr. Bradley explained to me that there are times in a month where we only have one meeting. So it may be difficult to implement that 14 days. And what he's saying, that following the announcement, the next meeting, the board will consider in its consent and advise role of the mayor's recommendation. So those are the fundamental changes. Mr. Bradley, do I have that right?
Yes, sir. I think you do, Mr. Robertson.
Thank you.
I wonder if I could make one suggestion on the very last line. It's in section 4. It says this ordinance shall take effect at the time of confirmation of the Chief of Operations. I wonder if we could change that, if it would be okay with the author to change that to the day that they start working, something to that effect.
Okay, Mr. Bradley, can you address that? Because you gave me this language that I inserted.
Yes, I guess we could just change it instead of say shall take effect upon the confirmation of the Chief of Operations, say shall take effect upon the commencement of employment by the Chief of Operations after confirmation by the Board of Mayor and Aldermen. And we can make that change. That's fine with you, isn't it, Mr. Robertson?
Yeah, and I want to make sure that that's fine with the mayor as well.
I need a better explanation of what the difference is there. Not real sure I'm following.
Well, when we went ahead and confirmed Carmen Davis, but she never arrived at the job. So I just would like for it to be that, as Alderman Robertson just said, an absolutely smooth, seamless transition. So what if we confirmed the person, but they weren't arriving for another month? You see what I'm saying?
So, yeah, I see that. The trouble I'm having is that I really have a hard time going out and looking for this person and telling prospective applicants that this job exists until after it exists. So I think the enactment of the ordinance needs to be earlier than the search, certainly by earlier than naming the person. And I mean, if the money, if the position doesn't exist, it's hard for me to. I think it's hard for us to advertise that as well. Eddie, am I making sense here, or is this not a big deal?
Well, Mr. Bradley, does your words on 3 make it clear to you that that the interim CA will stay until this new person takes office?
What we could do, we could leave number 3 the way it is, because you don't really want to, you want the ordinance to be, once you confirm that person, you want the ordinance to be in effect at that time, obviously, to confirm them. But if we change number 2 to say this position, the position of interim city administrator with all its current duties will remain in place until the board confirms a candidate for the position of chief of operations, you can say, and that person has begun employment. I think that's what Mr. Hayes is getting at. Really, just add right there, and that person has begun employment. That way you don't have a 2 or 3 month period or 2 or 3 week period, even 2 or 3 day period between the time of passage and the time of confirmation and when they began work. For example, you might confirm somebody that's not going to come for 3 weeks. So this way, Mr. Lamar, as it is in this case, would stay until they came for that seamless transition. But I think the language number 3 is fine. That has to do with the day the ordinance takes effect, that we've got something in place. The ordinance can, really the ordinance can be effective even earlier. What we're concerned about is not the effective date of the ordinance nearly so much as we are the transitional period. And I think by just adding that until the confirms a candidate for the position of chief of operations, and that candidate has begun employment. I think that takes care of Mr. Hayes' concern, if that's okay with you, Mr. Robertson.
Well, and that is congruent with the intent, with my intent of the legislation. So
yes, sir, I think so.
Yeah, and I agree with that. Jonathan?
Yes, sir.
If we make this change, are you okay with, are you in favor of the whole ordinance?
I'm at least that's one thing that I feel like I need to see changed.
Well, there's a longer conversation that I'm going to bring up later on. Is I have a problem with. I've already conceded an awful lot just in this one section. So if Alderman Hayes, if you want to bring this up as an amendment tonight, feel free. But I don't feel myself changing my ordinance as it's proposed, or our ordinance.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. And just to move this forward, I do believe that was my original intent, to make it a smooth transition. So I don't know how the mayor will react, but I really don't have a problem. I don't see how that fundamentally changes the intent of the legislation that I have proposed. So thank you, Mr. Hayes.
Thank you.
Let me, as the chairman, jump back in here, because we got about 5 people talking and I'm not doing my job, and that's okay. So I've written down what you said, Jonathan. Mr. Bradley has edited basically to be in legal form. We can amend at the committee level. So if you want to put that in as an amendment to move this forward to the board, then we can do that, or we can just move it forward to the board. you can bring it up that time. Mr. Hayes, it's your decision.
I would like to go ahead and put it in now, and because we're going to have a lot of discussion tonight. It's just one little thing. I just want to make sure that there's a handoff, a real good handoff of the baton, person to person.
Okay. All right, so you put
Chairman,
that
could
in
you
the form
repeat
of an
that?
amendment. We're running out of time, folks. Jonathan, is that a motion to amend?
Yes.
Okay, I will second that. Mr. Waters, you're talking, but I can't hear you.
I say, do we have time for Alderman Hayes to repeat that amendment? I
Yes,
want to
sir.
be sure I understand what.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Mr. Bradley can repeat it maybe better than Mr. Hayes.
Thank you.
Okay.
At the end of paragraph 2, under section 4, it says,
Section-
talks about the
section 4?
continue. At the
Section
end, yeah,
4.
paragraph 2 of section 4, where it says confirms a candidate for the position of chief of operations, he would like to add the phrase, and that candidate has begun employment with the city. The motion would be to add, and that candidate has begun employment with the city.
Okay, John, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any more conversation? We have about a minute. Okay, let's vote on that. Yes is affirmative, no is a negative. Mr. Hayes,
Yes.
Mr. Waters,
Yes, sir.
and I will be a yes. So that will be added. Mr. Bradley, you'll probably be called on to explain that, along with 17 other things in this ordinance once we get to Bowman. All right, so being as we have so much to discuss on this at Bowman, I would just, I'll make a motion to move it to Bowman, and
I'll
not with a
second it.
negative or not with a positive, but just to get it to Bowman because we are going to add it and discuss it tonight.
I'll second it.
Second,
All
go
right,
ahead.
got 2 seconds. That's
That's powerful.
I don't know what that is, but that's 2 seconds. So
That's
in the
concrete.
affirmative, yes, and the negative, no. Mr. Waters,
Yes.
Mr. Hayes,
Yes.
myself, yes. I feel like we've rushed through this like I do some other meetings that we've had for 30 minutes or so, not necessarily in general. I would like to maybe look at extending our meeting time, which would be, have to get with public safety and so if they're willing to move around for 30 minutes or so. I don't know how y'all feel about that, but I feel sometimes we need 45 minutes or an hour. I know the past chairman of this committee talked a lot faster, but he also, well, I'll just leave it there. So I'll send you all an email and we will discuss that. Mr. Waters, you're laughing. So, all right.
Mr. Chairman, the city attorney did let me know that on that 11:10 minutes that the existing members can vote on that.
Okay.
We could dispose of that.
All right. Thank you, sir. The November 10th meeting minutes, I did read them. I was not there, but Mr. Hayes was.
Yes.
I will call for a vote on those. Mr. Waters, yea or nay? Mr. Waters, yes or no on those November the 10th minutes?
November, sustain.
Okay. Mr. Hayes?
Yes. I vote yes.
Okay, I will abstain myself. So those are passed with 1 yes and 2 abstentions.
Mm-hmm. You did
We
good.
are adjourned.
Are we
Thank
finished?
you, Mr.
Oh,
Chairman.
no, I'm sorry. I got Chris to do.
We got
Be mad
another
at me.
resolution. We got a
You got
resolution.
1 minute, Chris Taylor.
Yeah,
That's not much time.
I certainly support extending the meeting minutes because these
Yeah, I
are
would too.
items. This is a new substance abuse policy and that ultimately supports the Tennessee drug-free workplace standards. We currently are not in compliance with that. If we become compliant with that and this gets approved at the BOMA level, we would apply for it. We would become a Tennessee drug-free workplace, which ultimately provides us a 5% reduction in our work comp premium, which ultimately equates to roughly $20,000 a year in savings. Long story short, this one, in my opinion, is a no-brainer. I've worked with members of several different departments, including police and fire, among others, and seemingly everyone seems to support this. I think this one's an easy one.
I agree.
I move
Okay.
approval.
Mr. Chairman, are you going just to delay this one, number
No, sir, I'm
5?
going to vote on it because I don't have any question on it. I'm the sponsor on it, and Chris and I have talked about it, and I believe it's something we need to do. So I would move to approve it.
I already did that.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. I'll second it then.
Oh, okay.
Mr. Hayes, yea or nay?
Yay.
Mr. Waters, yea or nay?
Yay.
And I'm a yes.
I'm a yes.
It is now 7 o'clock exactly. We are adjourned. We move
Thank
to
you.
Bowman.
Good job.